Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heretical Heathen Podcast. It is me, the Grand Heathen Heretic, the Rune Lord of Heresy, your host, Robert Knox. And this week we're going to continue our series on scrying and talking more about my sort of experiences doing the scrying. And just to be sure it was okay, and because I'm a little paranoid and I didn't want to offend any potential spirits that I may or may not be encountering, I did another set of divination just to be sure, again, just to test the waters, make sure things were okay. And I got a positive result again, so I guess I can continue the series. So this scrying session was on Uruz. Uruz is an interesting rune. If you've ever opened a book on runes or sort of taken up any like esoteric practice, every single one of them will have you both usually staring at the rune and then meditating on its meanings. And there's a host of meanings. A lot of modern esoteric work tries to grant them into the past, or tries to get the footing into a past, into some kind of tradition. So what they do is they take the rune poems and they try to derive meaning from the rune poems, which makes a lot of sense. Sort of look to the rune masters of old, figure out how they sort of encoded meaning into the runes, and then go from there. And you can do that with some of them. There's some common themes. You can see why particular themes were chosen for particular runes. However, Uruz is a little more complicated. It doesn't have a stable meaning through the rune poems. In some rune poems, Uruz is drizzle. And in other rune poems, it's slag, like from smithing. And so it's not really sure why exactly it has its typical associations, which are things like strength and vitality, which is also how I use it too, and that may be a product of early encounters with like esoteric work regarding the runes. So Uruz typically means aurochs, which is a type of cattle that no longer exists, which might be where the initial associations with strength and vitality come from. It would not surprise me if the original meaning stemmed from Johannes Burroughs. It's a occult scholar that not a lot of people know about, and I've personally never read his work. Esoterica on YouTube has a great episode on this guy's work. For people who are more interested in looking at the history of runology, please check out the Esoterica channel. His work is fantastic, and he can read and has access to, and is capable of understanding older esoteric works that even if I got my hands on, I probably couldn't understand. It may also stem from the work of Guido von List. I personally have not gone through the work of von List yet, but I do plan to do so in the future. So if you're into more like academic takes, you might want to find somebody who's got the time and resources and dedication to do that sort of thing. Then that's true of anything that I do here. I have a regular job. I work a lot. I'm sort of building a business with my wife on the side, and we're doing these podcasts. Plus, I write on Substack on occasion. So I don't really have the time required to do a thorough deep dive into all of these subjects as much as I personally would love to do so. I'll have a bit more time in the summer when I'm working more markets and I have more time to like sit down in between customers, and I'll spend more time sort of researching things then. That's just the way things go during the winter. I tend to be a little lazy. The older I've gotten, the more I've noticed that my mood and everything else about me is very weather dependent. Maybe it's been that way my whole life and I haven't noticed till now, but it really affects me. If the sun doesn't shine for a few days, I am supremely lazy. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. And I'm the kind of person who likes to lift weights multiple times a week, and I find myself struggling to even do that if it's been too cloudy. Anyway, this has gotten a little off topic. I guess we'll get back to scrying now. And before we begin, I just want to say, may Odin guide us, may Thor protect us, and may Bragi guide my tongue. Because boy, do I need it. I got ADD, and I tend to get off topic very easy. It's been a few weeks since the last episode on scrying, and I don't recall how much detail I went in. So I'll I guess just explain the basic process. And none of this stuff is secret. If you guys want, you can go out and get the Celtic Golden Dawn, the Heathen Golden Dawn, or get the original Golden Dawn system and just learn how to do these things for yourself. You could even probably find the information on Reddit, as terrible as a place Reddit can be sometimes. It does have good information on occasion. When you're scrying, you don't just jump into it right away. That could have potentially bad results, or so I'm told. I tend to be a bit more cautious. I've heard too many stories about things going wrong or people being over dramatic. It's very hard to tell. So before I begin scrying, I start with a LIRP. That's a lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram. I use a heathen version. So I start in the east, I do a sign, I draw pentagrams, and then I sort of, I guess, stab them, for lack of a better word, while vibrating a divine name. This is done at all 4 cardinal directions, or what some people might call the quarters. After this is done, you hollow the space using water. No, I'm sorry, I got this wrong. You cleanse the space using water, and then you hollow the space using incense. Afterwards, you'll circumambulate, which just means you're going to walk in a circle. I don't know why they use a big fancy word for it. But for opening this magical space, it's done clockwise, and you bow your head in respect multiple times in a particular direction. After this is done, you could potentially begin doing other work or jumping right into scrying. Personally, I don't think I would add any extra work. Well, maybe I would do like a lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram. That might be okay. But I don't like to do a lot of work before I'm going into scrying, because scrying does take a lot of energy, whether that's, let's say, spiritual energy or just mental energy. It can be a very draining experience. Scrying itself can be done pretty much anywhere. The way it's done in the system I'm using, you set a chair typically in the west and you face the east. So I did that. I got into my meditative state. There are different ways to do that. Do whatever you want that gets you there. That's what matters. And I put myself in the temple. Pictured the Uruz rune in front of me, and I went through the door. And the first thing I encountered was fog. And not like a little bit of fog. It was very foggy, and I couldn't see almost anything. And suddenly, out of the fog, weapons came at me. Very anime-like. And I had to deflect them. They were flying through the air, sort of coming at my head. I had to raise my bracers and deflect them. Then from in front of me, out of the fog, came some sort of enemy, right? And I can't remember the weapon he had. It's been a few weeks, and these things are like dreams. But he came to cleave my head. And so I parried, and I took his off his shoulders. After dispatching whatever this was, I then remembered some of the other pentagrams that are in my program, and so I drew a banishing pentagram of air, and the fog dispelled. With the fog no longer being a problem, I noticed that I'm standing on a catwalk, for lack of a better word, and the catwalk was leading to a lighthouse. Suddenly I could smell the water. I could hear the birds and the waves crashing against the catwalk. And when I say catwalk, I mean one of those lower cement ones, not the high ones that stand above the waves. So I walk down this catwalk to the lighthouse. I open the door and I go inside. The inside of the lighthouse is dark and I can't see very much. But before me is a hunched over figure, and he's wearing all black. I guess he's kind of lighthouse keeper. You can think of a very small Quasimodo situation, and he's holding up a lantern in his right hand. And as you do in these situations, I gave him the tests, which he passed, and then he pointed to the stairs in the lighthouse. So I decided to climb up the stairs. And once I got to the top, I now notice that I'm standing on the very top of the lighthouse, on that structure that goes around it. And the sun is shining, and I notice something about this lighthouse. It's someplace that I've been before. I've visited this particular place with my wife. And as I was standing there enjoying the view, from the sky, goats came crashing at me. And then suddenly an arm swinging a hammer. So I quickly grabbed the arm and swung myself into this chariot. And inside the chariot sat Thor. Well, that's kind of exciting, going in and meeting a god, right? Well, not everything is what it seems. And so this Thor-like character laughs and says, "You might die today." I laugh back and say, "Then today must be a good day to die." But just to be sure that this is actually this Thor figure, I give him the same test that I gave the lighthouse keeper, and he fails. And this is really important for anyone doing this sort of visionary work. Not everything is how it seems. There are things in these liminal spaces that will fuck with you. They'll lie to you. They'll take on the appearance of something to gain your trust. And it's important that we test them. You might wonder, well, how do you test them? There are different methods in every tradition. In the one I'm a part of, I have certain signs I draw. And for some reason, these beings, if they're, let's say, false or harmful, they don't seem to be able to draw these signs. I'm not exactly sure why. In some more Christian traditions, some people will quote certain scriptures, and they'll find that the beings in these realms can't quote those scriptures back. But either way, there's a test that you need to employ to ensure you're not being lied to or parasited by potential beings in these places. So after he failed this test, I left this chariot, and suddenly I'm standing on clouds, and I'm looking at the stars in space. This is an interesting pattern that's been unfolding in a lot of my sessions. There seems to be a celestial element, and when I looked up in the sky, I saw Uruz in the constellations, or better yet, as a constellation. Sort of thought to myself, why is it always space? And then suddenly from the cosmos, a planet comes bearing towards me, and the planet has the Uruz rune on it. The planet's black, and the stave is red. So I step onto the planet. I'm on it briefly, not very long, and then the doors to my temples come back, and I step into my temple, walk into my chair, sit down, and I come back into my body. Upon further meditations, it was revealed to me that the fog is symbolic of ignorance, right? Quite literally veiled in ignorance. And when one is veiled in ignorance, one is forced to do battle with unseen forces until you come face to face with the original source of ignorance. And that's what the original battle was in the vision. And upon slaying that force, clarity is gained. And that was me drawing the air pentagram, dispelling the fog. It's a moment of fighting those forces and coming to clarity. And so now that we have this moment of pristine, this moment of clarity, it's sort of like journeying further into consciousness. And our first step along this journey is going from ignorance to clarity, and then into the darkness again. It's like we're delving almost into the subconscious. Like there's something there, and I haven't quite got it worked out. But then we go to the lighthouse, and there's this moment of ascension. But then there's also this sort of symbolic sign that in order to ascend, let's say to gain higher consciousness, which is a phrase that I kind of find disgusting. It's a little too crystal hippie for me. But regardless, to move up, to attain like higher consciousness, one must face the dark. And one can't face the dark alone. One can never do anything alone. We're not individuals. We're nodes in a network. You need a guide. You need a teacher. And that's the man with the lantern. He's a guide that I have to trust. Sure, I gave him a test, but I still have to trust that he's guiding me and not potentially doing harm. And for a moment then, I put my faith in him. And then we have this moment of moving from earth, from the ground, into the darkness, and now we're going up. We're going from earth to air. And then once we meet air, when we attain this like first step along the journey, we're not met with, sunshine, rainbows, and baby kitten's teeth. We're met with a test. We're immediately tested, and it's something we have to watch out for. It's a test we have to pass. That's what this fake Thor moment was. It's like, all right, we're finally moving up, going from earth to air, and now we have to pass a test. We can't trust the false gods. Or whatever they are. I don't think these things are gods. They're probably lower, like daimons, or what's a good Norse equivalent? Like trolls or wights or something like that. And then passing that test, we rise up. We move up to the heavens, right? We go up the tower to the top. We pass the test, and now I'm sitting on top of the clouds, and I'm looking at the celestial heavens before me. Right? So we see this pattern of moving up. I'm still not quite sure what this planetary figure is, nor am I sure why it had the Uruz rune on it. I'm not sure if that's sort of me reaching a celestial or like a planetary energy of the rune itself, or if there's something else going on. I tried meditating on this several times and it came to no fruition, so maybe it's something I'm not meant to know yet. When I think back to my years of rune practice, you spend a lot of time in meditation, building a sort of symbolic temple, if you will, of these particular staves. But with the scrying, there's more interesting things going on. It's like I'm stepping into new worlds. And with each new world explored, I learn new things. I find new patterns that weren't there during these simple moments and years of meditation. Now there are deeper lessons revealing themselves. And in a lot of them, there seems to be an upwards trajectory. Maybe that's a sign that I'm getting more enlightened on this rune path, whatever the hell that means. Maybe there's something else going on. I'm not quite sure. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, before we end it, I want to talk about more practical ways you can use the Uruz rune just in your day-to-day, because it's something I use quite frequently. And in particular, I like to use it at the gym, but you could do this anywhere. In moments when you need to be strong and you just don't feel like you got it. Like maybe you're at work and you need to get a project done and you just feel completely drained of energy. You can use Uruz. What I like to do is I picture the Uruz rune at about your solar plexus inside of you in a circle, and I like to picture it the color of lightning and imagine that it's filled with the power of strength of Thor, and I picture that growing and electricity shooting through my body, and I feel that electricity growing and getting stronger and shooting its way through every cell of my body. And it works very well. In fact, you will be shocked at how suddenly and how much energy you're filled with from something as simple as this. And that's one way that you can use Uruz more practically. If you're somebody who is weak of mind, like maybe you have anxiety or some other condition that causes your mind to be a bit scattered and not as strong as it potentially could be, then you can focus on Uruz to bring strength into the mental sphere. And what I would recommend is chanting its name. Chanting these names are a very powerful practice. The names sort of like tune you to that frequency. And so you should spend some time each week chanting at least a rune's name. Or if you're a little more hardcore, you could spend multiple days on each rune, go through all of the Futhark, and if you're really squirrely, you could even grab another rune set and do it all again. And so you're just building more and more associations and building a stronger, more vivid temple through these rune practices, and they will affect your life. It's not just a psychological thing. You might start working with Hoglaws and suddenly a storm hits. It happened to me. You will start seeing weird effects in your day-to-day life. So proceed with caution, my heathens. And I think that's it. That's all I have for today. If you like this episode, give me a like, share it around, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Now, I am the high, holy, grandest of the heretics, Robert Knox. Now, the runes have been cast, and what they have in store for you, only the gods know.